How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brown Logan, and today we got to talk about Donald Trump's speech in front of the UN General Assembly. And today is Tuesday, September the 19th of 2017. It was a great speech. I enjoyed it. I'll link to the full thing in the description box below if you want to check it out for yourself in full. But right here today, I'm going to talk about two highlights of the actual speech. Now, the first one is going to be the one that the mainstream media is going to have a field day with because of the language he used during it. It was not like he cursed or anything like that, but what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and roll it for you, and then you'll be able to see the key point in the actual talk that I'm going to show here, the segment of it, which got a lot of the mainstream media's attention. After we get done with that, we'll talk about that briefly, and then we'll move on to the next clip. So without further ado, go ahead and roll it.
No one has shown more contempt for other nations and for the well-being of their own people than the depraved regime in North Korea. It is responsible for the starvation deaths of millions of North Koreans and for the imprisonment, torture, killing, and oppression of countless more. We were all witness to the regime's deadly abuse when an innocent American college student, Otto Warmbier, was returned to America only to die a few days later. We saw it in the assassination of the dictator's brother using banned nerve agents in an international airport. We know it kidnapped a sweet 13-year-old Japanese girl from a beach in her own country to enslave her as a language tutor for North Korea's spies. If this is not twisted enough, now North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles threatens the entire world with unthinkable loss of human life. It is an outrage that some nations would not only trade with such a regime, but would arm, supply, and financially support a country that imperils the world with nuclear conflict. No nation on earth has an interest in seeing this band of criminals arm itself with nuclear weapons and missiles. The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready, willing and able, but hopefully this will not be necessary. That's what the United Nations is all about. That's what the United Nations is for. Let's see how they do.
Okay, so you saw that, you heard that. Now, of course, the mainstream media, they're going to ignore what he was talking about, where the lady got kidnapped on Japanese beach or whatever and forced to become a language tutor or whatever. They're going to look past the, mention of Otto Warmbier, the young man who was returned basically brain dead when he had been held prisoner in North Korea for a little while now. I think maybe about 15 months or so, maybe more. They're going to ignore that part. All they're going to talk about is the whole Rocket Man comment. He had been calling Kim Jong-un Rocket Man in some tweets, so I guess that he carried it on throughout the actual speech. Now, I've heard rumors that his advisors, whoever these advisors are, told him to not say the whole Rocket Man thing. I don't know if that's true or false, because you know how these stories go. They always have these unnamed sources. You never know who the unnamed source is. They never get so-called unmasked, but I digress. My whole point here is that they're going to focus on the whole Rocket Man thing. Now, at the end of the day, aside from the kind of funny Rocket Man comment, what he was saying was right on point. You can't have these regimes pretty much, be allowed to do whatever they want to do. Now, I'm not one for, preemptive strikes or interventionism, but if they do something that I feel like is going over the line, like attacking somebody, then we got to respond. It is what it is. Now, some would say you should do a preemptive attack to prevent them from attacking us, but that's just not really how I roll. But I understand why you would say that. I really do get it, because they're nuclear, they got a leader that's kind of crazy. But I think really what they're doing in North Korea, they're trying to a saber rattle to get money is like an extortion tactic. They've been doing this for a long time. You know, you had Trump talking about this in the 90s, I think like 1999 or something like that. So this ain't nothing new. This is pretty much how North Korea behaves. They're a starving country. They don't have any money. I've heard that Nikki Haley said that over 90% of the trade into North Korea and out of North Korea has been strangled. So at a certain point, you know, they're going to have to lay down their guns, so to speak, and give up. And I hope that's what happens rather than us having to go there and destroy them like Trump said that we would or could. Now, to get to the next part of the speech I thought was pretty good was the whole thing about socialism. Now, this I doubt would be on the mainstream media. I doubt they're going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Maybe they would. Maybe they would, because some people would be upset that he talked about socialism and communism in a negative way. But I doubt it. I doubt even the mainstream media will cover this. Of course, some of those on the left, the far left extremists, the Antifa types, they're going to be proponents of socialism and communism. But I'm not quite sure the mainstream media is prepared yet to make Antifa become normalized. Shout out to Yuri Bismanoff for that term. I digress. What I'm going to do right now is go ahead and roll that clip for you where he talked about socialism and communism as it relates to Venezuela, Soviet Union, Cuba, etc. After we get done with that, I'll talk about that. Then I'm wrapping on up for you. So without further ado, go ahead and roll this.
The problem in Venezuela is not that socialism has been poorly implemented, but that socialism has been faithfully implemented. From the Soviet Union to Cuba to Venezuela, wherever true socialism or communism has been adopted, it has delivered anguish and devastation and failure. Those who preach the tenets of these discredited ideologies only contribute to the continued suffering of the people who live under these cruel systems.
Okay, so you're able to see that. You see what's going on now. that right there is right on point. The funniest thing is that how people always talk about when they want to defend socialism and communism, and you bring up, you know, Pol Pot, you bring up Mao Zedong, you bring up Lenin, you bring up all these people, Maduro, Castro, you bring up all these people and all these failed states where it is not worked. Communism, socialism is the same thing. Right. I mean, you bring up the Nazi Germany situation. What did Nazi stand like? What was that actually? What did it actually mean? Nazi was an acronym for National Socialist. Right. What was it? The German Workers' National Socialist Party. Like, that's what it was. So, yeah, all these people coming up with all these governmental regulations to try and help improve the economy. Everybody knows, if you're a true economist of any respect for yourself, and if you have any respect in the industry, if the industry is respectable, when you're talking about the economic and academia world, everybody knows that free market capitalism is the best way to go. Now, is it perfect? Of course not. Especially when you're talking about incorporating globalism into it, it becomes very tricky. But at the end of the day, everybody knows that capitalism is the best way to go. I mean, at one point, China was totally communist. They still have some communist elements in their government, of course, you know, the whole one-child policy and stuff like that. They're still pretty strict when it comes to that, but their economy is based on capitalism. I mean, like sheer capitalism. They just have a lot of control in other aspects of society. You know, they control video game, like they control stuff like that. But as far as the economy goes, that's pretty much free market capitalism, and that's why they are succeeding, and that's why America has succeeded. And we have to get back to that. We need to have less regulations and less red tape on businesses, allow them to grow in the free market, and allow people to be able to make their own wealth rather than relying upon the federal government to subsidize their wealth. And this whole thing about the UBI, that's the universal basic income, that right there is a tenet of socialism or communism, right? Everybody has a job, everybody has money, but everybody's broke. It's Animal Farm type stuff. We try to make everybody equal except for a few people at the top. You know, your whole Zuckerbergs and Bill Gates of the world. They'll give you the UBI and keep you right there at a low level. They'll automate everything, and you just pretty much be a cog in the machine, a consumer, a useless eater that gets you fat. And when you die, that's it. You know, they put you on the universal healthcare system, and then they have a death panel. They say, okay, if you're over 70 years old and your illness is too much for the taxpayer to bear, We're just not going to cover it. Now try to fix whatever you got going on with your UBI and see how far that goes. The costs associated with daily living would be through the roof. Your UBI would be the new floor. And if you don't get UBI, you pretty much be unable to fend for yourself at all. Maybe if you live out in the woods and you're able to kill rabbits and deer or something like that to be able to sustain yourself, and you drink water from rain. But I've seen people get locked up for collecting rainwater, and you don't want to be squatting on somebody's property, private or federal, to be out there trying to call yourself a game hunter or something like that. So at the end of the day, stuff like, universal health care, UBI, all that stuff is just more government control in your life. You have less freedom as an individual. So the best thing for all nations, especially United States, especially Western nations that are built upon free market capitalism, the best thing for us is that which has made us become very successful to this day, not something that has made other nations collapse. So what do you think? Do you think what Trump said during the UN speech was good? Was it bad? What were your actual highlights of the speech that I did not mention here? Like I said, my main highlights was, what the media is going to talk about, which is the whole North Korea kerfuffle with using the term Rocket Man to describe Kim Jong-un. But the best part for me, which the media will most certainly not cover, is we talked about with socialism. I mean, that was dead on it. It's not like he had bad socialism in Venezuela, Cuba, Soviet Union, etc. It's the fact that there was socialism at all. Let the free market economy work and let people be able to succeed in that system. But whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.